right, kid, I got another one for you. Have you ever wondered why, for decades now, America's political right has clung to the single word heritage so strongly? Why it is invoked to defend monuments, shape policies, and used to define who counts as a real American? You see, heritage isn't just about the past, it's about power. It's about who gets to inherit America and who gets erased from its story. So let's talk about defining heritage. Now, heritage sounds harmless, even wholesome, right? It conjures up images of family heirlooms, warm traditions, and the passing down of values from one generation to the next. But in American politics, heritage has now become a coded claim, a way of saying, without actually coming right out and saying it, that the United States belongs primarily to the white European settlers who came here, conquered the land, and built wealth on the backs of others. It's not about nostalgia, it's about entitlement. It actually says, this is ours and only ours. But here's a historical reality check, starting with native displacement. Because no matter how much far right America tries to rewrite historical fact, the birth of America was soaked in blood. Policies like the Indian Removal Act of 1830 forced entire nations from their homelands. The Trail of Tears was not just a migration, it was a death march. By 1890, at Wounded Knee, U.S. soldiers slaughtered hundreds of Lakota men, women, and children. This was the closing chapter in a centuries long campaign to seize indigenous lands and destroy native sovereignty. Meanwhile, enslaved Africans were the engine of America's wealth. By 1860, nearly 4 million human beings were held in bondage. Their unpaid labor fueled the cotton empire of the South and the industrial rise of the North. Even after emancipation, freedom was poisoned by black codes, Jim Crow laws, and the terror of groups like the Ku Klux Klan, who used violence to enforce white supremacy. Let's move the discussion from enslavement and exploitation to immigration and segregation. Exclusion wasn't limited to Native peoples or African Americans. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was the first federal law to ban immigration based explicitly on race. Later, the Immigration Act of 1924 set strict quotas favoring white Europeans, reinforcing the idea that America was, by design, a white man's country. And segregation wasn't just a Southern custom. In Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, the Supreme Court provided legal justification for a system that divided public life by race for nearly a century. Then came the rise of heritage as a political weapon. You see, by the mid 20th century, the civil rights movement was dismantling some of the barriers, but backlash was brewing. Overt racism was falling out of favor in mainstream politics, so opponents of progress turned to more refined language. Confederate flags were rebranded with the slogan, "Heritage, not hate." Segregation was reframed as tradition, and think tanks like the Heritage Foundation wrapped deeply regressive policies in patriotic branding, making them more palatable to a wider audience. Heritage became a shield, a means to resist change without ever articulating what was truly being fought for. Now, would you like to hear a truly neat story? Well, let me tell you about Heritage USA, the perfect metaphor. Even pop culture joined in. In the 1980s, televangelist Jim and Tammy Faye Baker built Heritage USA, a Christian theme park and residential complex in South Carolina. It promised wholesome fun, clean living, and a carefully curated vision of Christian America. Families rode water slides, climbed prayer towers, and bought vacation homes, all under the banner of heritage. But behind the glossy image were financial scandals and hypocrisy. A scandal involving the cover-up of hush money paid to Church Secretary Jessica Hahn for allegedly drugging and raping her brought down the entire house of cards. I'll run down the short list alphabetically for brevity's sake. Conspiracy, conviction, divorce, felony charges, fraud, illegal misuse of ministry funds, imprisonment, parole, prison, Baker's resignation, revelation of accounting fraud, sexual misconduct charges, and disclosure of 2 sets of books. When the empire collapsed, it left behind abandoned buildings and broken promises, just like the political version of heritage. It offered comfort and certainty on the surface while hiding the messy, painful truths underneath. Not to worry, good old Jim made his triumphant return to televangelism in 2003, embracing apocalypticism and selling overpriced doomsday survivalist gear such as buckets of freeze-dried food, including beans on toast, in preparation for the end of days, because, after all, Christianity loves a good comeback story. And God is a pretty sweet racket. Say a prayer, all is forgiven. Say that God is your leader, no proof required. There is no taxation, and he doesn't even get a cut of the take. Rev up the engine and start all over again. And although Baker condemned the prosperity theology in which he had earlier participated, his later years have been marked by controversial claims, including the promotion of some unproven supplements, which resulted in legal action during the pandemic. Are you wondering why it matters now? Well, here's what I think. When today's politicians talk about heritage, they aren't just reminiscing. They're staking a claim to the future. It's about who America belongs to. It's about controlling school curricula, restricting voting rights, policing borders, and fighting demographic change. Heritage becomes a strategy, a way to gatekeep the nation's identity, ensuring that power stays in the hands of those who believe that they are its rightful heirs. So, in closing, just let me leave you with this much. Heritage can be something beautiful when it's shared, when it celebrates the many cultures and multitudes of voices that make up a truly diverse nation. But when it's used as a weapon, it becomes a wall built by bitter tyrants to keep certain people out of the story of America. The question isn't just whose heritage we honor, it's whose future we are willing to build. And history isn't just what we inherit, it's what we choose to create. Know that I love you and that I'm always with you.